afternoon. Welcome back to Football League World TV. It's time for the latest edition of The Debate, and here we're talking 6 EFL Wonderkids you should keep your eyes on between now and the end of the season. I'm your host, George Dagless, and this afternoon I'm joined by Marcus Ally and Toby Wilding. Marcus, how are you getting on?
Yeah, really well. Thanks, George. I think tracking some of the younger players emerging in the EFL has got to be one of the best things you can do as a supporter, often seeing some of the stars of the future that go on to bigger and better things, sadly, before plenty of other football fans. So excited to highlight 3 of them that I can definitely see going on to play at the top level in the future in this show.
Good stuff. Toby, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. I mean, as Marcus says, there's so much talent going around across the EFL, so really what wasn't easy just to narrow this down to just a few picks, if I'm being honest, but nevertheless, we've got some really good players to sort of talk about over the course of the show, so going to be really enjoyable and really interesting to sort of shine a light on a few of them now.
Yeah, plenty of good players to discuss in the next 20 or so minutes. We're across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. We are live. Let us know what EFL players that you've seen that are of a younger age impress you, and which ones you think we should look out for in the next few months before the end of this season. Let's get straight into the debate. Toby, why don't we come to you first of all? Let's have your first pick.
Yeah, I'll start with Brennan Johnson at Nottingham Forest, and I've got to be honest. Sort of back towards the start of the season, we did sort of a top 5 young players in the Championship, and I'll hold my hands up. For some reason, he sort of missed out on mine, and to be honest, I've sort of been kicking myself a bit about that ever since. So, to be honest, I've really had to include him here because he's such a quality player. I mean, as I say, I've sort of missed out there, and he's just gone from strength to strength this season already, since, really breaking into that Forest team. I mean, he was absolutely incredible in that FA Cup win against Leicester on Sunday. And I think that really showed already, not for the first time when you consider the Arsenal Cup win as well earlier in January, just how good he is and how ready he already looks to be to make that step up to the Premier League in the not too distant future. And obviously, we sort of saw quite a bit of speculation about that over the January transfer window, and it would be no surprise to sort of see that happen again in the summer if Forest don't get promoted. But on the flip side to that, with the way he's playing right now, he's almost their best hope of keeping him in a way, because he is one of those who could really fire them to promotion back to the Premier League, and that is something that's going to be massive in terms of their chances of keeping hold of him beyond the summer when he'll be into the final 12 months of his contract. So as I say, just the sort of creativity, the fact he can score goals, he can create them for others, the pace he's got, he's just such an enthralling player to watch down that right-hand side for Forest. And as I say, those FA Cup games showed just how high a level he can already do that at. So absolutely, he feels like one you've really got to keep an eye on over the course of the next few months, and of course beyond that.
Yeah, certainly appears to be going only one way, Brennan Johnson. You've got to give Steve Cooper credit as well, haven't you, Toby? I mean, we know what ability Cooper has to work with young players, but it seems that Johnson has just reached new levels since the manager's come in there at the City Ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that you sort of feel was always a big part of this appointment at Forest in terms of bringing in Cooper. We've seen it before with the likes of Liverpool and England at youth level, even at Swansea over the past couple of seasons. He knows how to get the best out of these sorts of players at that stage and that age of their careers. And, Johnson is one who's really flourished with that. I mean, I think we always, even before Cooper came in, we sort of saw the potential he had. But, Cooper has just really been able to bring that out of him. And, before his arrival, he was sort of there in a side struggling. They really weren't getting going at all at the start of this season under Chris Hughton. Even with the efforts of the likes of Johnson, they were still rooted right in that relegation battle. And I think the fact that Cooper has been able to galvanise this squad and, now got them pushing on towards the playoffs, that's only going to help Johnson even more in terms of that confidence it's going to give him that he can, contribute to a team pushing at the right end of the table. And, the momentum that brings for him as well. It's always easier to, when you're winning, to play football and to play well. And that, I think, as well, is something we're seeing here with Johnson now.
Brennan Johnson, then a very good first pick of 6 EFL Wonderkids to watch for the end of the season. Marcus has come to you now. Who's your first pick?
So moving from Nottingham Forest to Derby County, the youngest player in my list and my first pick is Festiebersele, the 19-year-old, has emerged as a rising talent in the Championship in the last few months. Obviously, scored a goal and played a huge hand in creating one in Derby's 3-1 win over Hull City yesterday evening, which of course has the Rams just 4 points away from safety. And if they are to realise what we probably all thought at one stage was an impossible escape from relegation, I think Ebersele is going to be an enormous player in Wayne Rooney's men, looking to kick on and really carry on the momentum that they've shown in the last few months. Just 19 years of age, of course, is a Republic of Ireland under-21 international. He's so versatile. He's played at right back, at right wing, at left back, at left wing, and to be honest, I think he could even develop to possibly play in some other positions going forward. I could possibly see him as maybe a very mobile number 10 at some stage in the future. He was mainly a right back, I think, coming through the youth ranks at Derby, and was a key player in their runs to the last 16 of the UEFA Youth League in 2020, where they famously beat Borussia Dortmund under 18s at the round of 32 stage. This is a player where the sky's the limit for me. At 19, obviously, it's still a little bit early to try and categorically judge where his true potential is, but just the intelligence of his movement. He's fearless in the tackle. He's so strong as a 1v1 defender, which obviously is so important when playing at fullback, but he's shown in recent weeks that he can be a huge contributor in the final third as well. So it's just such an exciting talent. Same situation as Brennan Johnson. If he does stay at Derby, he'll enter the final year of his contract next season. So at some stage, it doesn't look like his future will be at Pride Park unless, hopefully, Derby can find some new owners. And I think they'd have so much momentum going into next season if they were able to stay up with new sort of impetus from board level, and with players like Ebersele in the side. It could really be a huge new generation for the club. The players they've got coming out of the academy at the moment, it's just an incredible year group and sort of few years that they've got, and a lot of them have been able to contribute towards Derby's good fortunes this season. But I think Ebersele is possibly the most crucial of all of them heading into the final few months of the season. And yeah, he just seems to be getting better and better every week. Rooney really is getting the best out of him, and I can see him going right to the top at international level and club level in the coming years.
I suppose one of the silver lions of Derby's predicament at the moment is these young players are getting their opportunity to feature as well. And obviously, in the case of Ebersele, he's absolutely grasped it with both hands. A good pick, Marcus. I think that's fair to say. That's 2 out of the 6 done then. Toby, who's up next? Are we going to move away from the East Midlands with this next one?
Yeah, just not too far away, but just heading out the Midlands now, up to Yorkshire actually for me, and destination Sheffield United here for a player who's actually just made his return to Bramall Lane, and that's Dan Jefferson. And I just think this is going to be an absolutely fascinating one to sort of keep an eye on over the second half of the season. Obviously, we've sort of seen in the past few weeks Sheffield United finally looking like they're sort of hitting the form that we all expected of them since the start of the season, in terms of being capable of making a push for promotion. And obviously Jefferson spent the first half of the season away from that. He was out on loan at Burton Albion, but suddenly it looks to me like he's going to be a really important player for the Blades if they are to make that top 6 come the end of the campaign, because obviously we've seen Ryan Brewster recently ruled out for the season through injury. They've also loaned out Lys Mousset. And then, Ollie McBurney and David McGoldrick have never really been able to get going for Sheffield United this season in terms of goals. So that really only leaves, with the exception of Jefferson, Billy Sharp. And as good as he continues to be, I do wonder whether at that stage of his career he can sort of cope with the demands of playing this sort of intensity week in, week out, and midweeks as well. So that really, for me, puts a bit of pressure on Jefferson in terms of stepping up and contributing at times to sort of allow Sharp maybe to get a bit of a break, and ensuring that goal threat is still there for Sheffield United as it's going to need to be. And I think, to be fair, he's got all the attributes needed. I mean, already a bit of a record breaker with his goal for Sheffield United in the win at Everton towards the end of last season, and then Obviously, it was a bit of a slow start for him at Burton, but he was really starting to hit a bit of form just before that recall. I mean, he ended up with 7 goals in 20 league games for them. And I think as well, playing under Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank there's not many better managers for a young striker such as Jefferson to learn from at that stage of his career. So I'm just really interested to see if he can now sort of carry that on with Sheffield United during the second half of this season, when it looks like they're going to be really mounting a big push for definitely the playoffs, and potentially, given sort of the form of the teams above them, maybe even the automatics.
Such big opportunities being presented to him, isn't it, by way of some circumstances at Sheffield United over the January window as well. Big opportunity for Jefferson to make his mark at Bramall Lane if he can fire Sheffield United inside the top 6. Marcus, let's come to you then. Let's hear who your next pick is.
So moving to Bristol City, and a player who seems to really be coming of age in the last few months, and that's Hanan Musengo. Joined for big money coming from, I think, Monaco B it was in the summer of 2019. So had a big reputation and a high ceiling clearly identified by the Robins. He's been sort of in and out of the side in the last couple of seasons, had an extended run here or there, but not really established himself as a real key player for the Robins as much as he has been able to do in the last few months. He's very, very comfortable on the ball as a central midfielder, quite press resistant, easy in tight areas, very calm, and able to keep possession. I also think there's a lot of development ahead of him. I wouldn't say he's nailed down to a specialist role as a central midfielder just yet. I think he's equally capable, sort of sitting in a deeper role and looking to dictate play, as well as playing as maybe a more box-to-box midfielder and breaking the lines and creating chances. So from that point of view, it is going to be exciting to see how he gets on. Obviously, Nigel Pearson's been looking to play quite a lot of younger players in the last sort of few weeks to months at the Ashton Gate, knowing that Bristol City are quite safe in their position in the Championship this season. But Musengo is definitely in on merit, and he's a player that seems to be a theme of this list, ends as the final year of his contract next season. So it would not be a surprise to see some pretty hefty bids come in for him in the summer if he can sustain the performance levels that he's been able to show in the last few months. I'm really excited about Musengo. I think that the platform is definitely there for him to succeed at Ashton Gate, and it's going to be definitely one to monitor. I think the sort of versatility of his game, the way he can switch it up and almost change pace in a match, will definitely be something that has heads turning round and looking in higher places. And even though he came in with a hefty price tag, he's a player that's starting to justify that and look like he's ready to kick on to the next level, whether that be competing at the top end of the Championship for a period of time, or whether he will take a jump to the Premier League or another sort of European, maybe top flight division in the coming years. I think is definitely quite likely.
Certainly a player as well. Ever since he arrived at Bristol City, sort of caught the eye, didn't he? Particularly given his young age, come in, like you say, Marcus, coming from a country, obviously a different country, arrived at Bristol City and quickly adapted to Championship life, and certainly looks well at home now in second tier midfields, and could well be moving higher up in the very near future. Toby, let's come to you then. Let's get your final pick to make it 5 or 6.
I've gone for a slightly different tack for this one, and I guess a bit of a shout out to the goalkeepers here. You don't always get the sort of coverage they perhaps deserve in lists like this. So I'm heading to Lancashire now, over from Yorkshire, and I've gone for Toby Savin at Accrington Stanley, who I just really think he's one worth keeping an eye on at the minute. Obviously, still only 20, so he's very young, really. For a goalkeeper to be playing at this sort of level where he is getting that first team football week in, week out, and he's not just playing there, he's impression, and he's catching the eye, because obviously we've seen the likes of Tottenham and Southampton already linked with him this season, and I think that sort of shows just how good he is and how much potential he has. And also I think it's sort of worth noting last season, Accrington, they had Nathan Baxter on loan from Chelsea. He's now at Hull, and he's now impressing at Hull, which shows how good he is. And yet, really, last season, he sort of struggled even when he's on loan from a club like Chelsea, where they're expecting their players to play regularly, when they're loaning them out. He struggled to sort of get ahead of Savin in the pecking order at Accrington. So I think that too really sort of shows the promise and the potential that he has. And obviously, again, funnily enough, he's another who's going to be into the final 12 months of his contract in the summer. And, there's sort of, as I say, I mentioned Spurs there, and, they're one who could potentially afford him. I think there's sort of talk about as a potential Hugo Lloris replacement. And that's a huge tag to put on any goalkeeper, let alone one who's playing in League One at 20 years old. So that just shows how highly he's rated and how worth following he is. And I think it would be an interesting deal that, as I say, there's still a bit of time left on Savin's contract, but you would expect Spurs to have the financial power if they wanted to go out and get that deal done to do so. And, if that could then, with, say, the fact that there is a couple of years left on Lloris's contract at Spurs, that'd be a huge opportunity for him to learn before, stepping into that role, or maybe even going out on loan for a couple of years before then making that step up when Lloris moves on. So I think, as I say, really quality goalkeeper, and it's interesting to sort of look at the potential different career paths that Savin could take over the next few seasons.
Yeah, great to get a goalkeeper in there as well. I think Toby, and it's a position where experience is obviously perhaps more important than any other part of the pitch, and given how well he's done, given his young age as well, certainly one to watch in the years ahead. Marcus, let's round off the show then with your final pick to make it hopefully in the future for these guys a Super Six.
Definitely. My final pick is Jason Knight, going back to Derby County. Now, Knight isn't a player I was anywhere near as sold on as I am now before this season. I kind of got the impression that maybe the Rams were accelerating some of these younger players through to the first team almost for the sake of it, to try and look like they had some kind of direction as a club. So I was kind of thinking that Knight had accumulated these appearances more due to faith being shown above him, sort of buying into the potential that he had, rather than the performance level that he was able to produce at the time. This season, he's completely won me round. I think he's been sensational under Wayne Rooney. Missed the opening exchanges of the season with an ankle injury, but has adapted very swiftly, having recovered, and has actually played more as a wide midfielder off the left or right than as a central midfielder, which is where he predominantly broke into the side as. I don't think he's quite got the ability of the likes of Festiebersele or Musengo. I don't see his ceiling as just as high, but what he doesn't have in natural ability definitely makes up for in his intensity and endeavour on the pitch. He's a very valuable player to have in looking to deploy a pressing system. I think that's probably why Rooney's played him out wide in so far this season quite a lot, because there is more of an opportunity for him to get in defenders' faces than there is in central midfield. I know he personally sees him as a specialist number 8, and I think he'll probably mature into that in the future. But at 20 years old, with the amount of appearances he's got and the way he's contributing to Derby week in, week out, I just couldn't leave him out. Rooney's previously just described him as a manager's dream, and though I maybe don't see him going on to play at such well-esteemed clubs as maybe the previous two in my list, I see no reason why he can't become a reliable Premier League player in the next few years, and could possibly build on that. Of course, still only 20 years old. He's definitely a player that I'm sure the Republic of Ireland national team are very excited about having for the years to come. They do have a very strong up-and-coming generation. I see Knight to be right at the centre of that. So he's got a lot of versatility, as we tend to see with quite a lot of younger players nowadays, but he could literally play in any midfield role that you told him to and probably produce quite a similar level of performance, which is a great skill to have, and should stand him in good stead looking to progress in his career. Yeah, Jason Knight is someone that's really won me over in the last few months. And so in what I did have was quite a long list. I had to whittle it down to 3. I couldn't quite leave him out just for that intensity in and out of possession. He does contribute to Derby in every game he plays. And it'll be interesting to see how he gets on in what could be some crunch encounters in the coming months.
Yeah, no, I think you've given a pretty good summary there, Marcus, of Jason. I think it's a pretty good way of describing him as a footballer, reliable potential Premier League presence for years to come. And I'm sure he'd more than take that in terms of his career in the next 10 or so years. So that rounds out the debate. The 6 that we've just mentioned, Brennan Johnson, Daniel Jefferson, Toby Savin, Hanan Musengo, Festiebersele and Jason Knight. 6 very good players, and certainly 6 players to watch for the rest of the season and probably for the years to come. Coming up on Football League World TV tomorrow. We're done on the channel for today. Just the one show, the EFL midweek review. Obviously, games going on up and down the EFL. Alfie Burns will be hosting that one at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Billy Mully and Ben Wignall will be joining them. Just a quick plug for Football League World TV on YouTube. Do subscribe to the channel and do like this video as well. If you can, that'd be greatly appreciated as we try and grow things further on Football League World TV. But Marcus, Toby, thanks for joining me this afternoon. Great to get your thoughts, as always, on all things EFL, but particularly the 6 Wonder Kids to be watching out for the rest of the season. And people at home, we will catch you very soon.